cover in an upcoming video, make sure to drop that in the comment section. I love hearing things that I haven't heard about before. And once again, subscribe, because that's what YouTubers are supposed to ask you to do. Come say hi over on Twitch. I'll leave it there. I love you all very, very much. I'll see you in the next video. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.
Jesteśmy w Twoim mieście, aby dostarczyć Ci wszystko, czego potrzebujesz, prosto pod Twoje drzwi. Zamów Glovo i zyskaj 10 zł zniżki na pierwsze zamówienie z McDonald's z kodem 10MCD.
It's been a while since we gave Assassin's Creed Valhalla a chance to win us over. And that's mostly because the last time we played it was for a big 3-hour critique I made where I tore the game to shreds and basically called it a travesty. Sorry, not sorry, just calling it like it is. So as you guys remember, back in 2014, Hideo Kojima released a game called PT under cover of darkness. He published it under a secretive studio name that nobody had ever heard of, and so when this game dropped, labeled PT, nobody knew what to make of it. It just came out of nowhere, nobody knew who made it, nobody knew that it was coming, but they did know that it looked spoopy. And so they downloaded it, started playing it, and realized this thing was actually pretty damn good. Soon after its release, people realized that it had come from Hideo Kojima, and people were able to solve it relatively quickly, which was very surprising because the game gives you absolutely no guidance on what you're supposed to do whatsoever. Something that some people love and other people absolutely hate. But quickly, the playable teaser, which is what PT stands for, garnered a sort of cultish following. People look at it as an absolutely breathtaking game, something that was way ahead of its time, something that is one of the best horror games of all time. And I've previously said things like that based off of nostalgia, but today I wanted to go back through, play it, and see if it actually is as good as everybody remembers, or if we perhaps were exaggerating a little bit because we got caught up in the fervor and excitement of a new Kojima release. Now, there are some limitations with this experiment that we're going to be doing that I need to outline here. So let's go back to the desk and tackle it. Okay, so the first thing you need to understand is that PT is no longer available anywhere. Like, you can't download it onto the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5. It's just gone. So there are, to this day, people that have the playable teaser still installed on their base PS4s from 2014, and they actively sell them for pretty steep prices. I found this one that's out of course, the UK, which is why it's being sold in pounds sterling, but it's selling for the equivalent of $883 US. Not because it's signed by some celebrity, not because it's filled with gold, just because it's locked at firmware 4.07 and includes an original copy of PT. That's the nostalgia level we're talking about. There are 11 people watching this item right now. That's how hyped up people are on PT. It's insane. Now, for obvious reasons, I don't want to pay $880 to get a PlayStation 4 that might be a scam, just to get a copy of a playable demo that may or may not actually be on the device. So instead, I'm using something called Unreal PT. And this is actually one of the coolest things that's come out of the modding community in recent years, at least in my opinion. Basically, 3-ish years ago, a guy decided to remake the entirety of PT step by step, object by object, in Unreal Engine, and he did a phenomenal job with it. It's literally indistinguishable from the original game, includes all of the same gameplay systems and mechanics that are perfectly timed out to be a one-to-one recreation of the game. So it is about as close as you could possibly get to playing the original without having to spend $1,000 to buy a PS4 that happens to still have the software on it. Now, one of the things that you have to understand is that this copy of Unreal PT, because it is a one-to-one recreation, it was struck and the developer was sent cease and desist orders, basically for copyright infringement, because he Like, he did one-to-one recreate a game that didn't belong to him legally. So it was struck, he was forced to take it down and no longer distribute it. I'm not going to tell you how you can get it, if you can get it, but I'm sure those of you who are very resourceful.
Jeśli lubisz lato i ruch na świeżym powietrzu, na pewno polubisz praktyczny sprzęt i akcesoria sportowe z Lidla. Już dziś zaplanuj swoją wakacyjną przygodę. Tylko w środę w Lidlowych, czyli niskich cenach. Przenośna lodówka idealna na piknik i plażę, 50 zł taniej, tylko 199 zł. Hamak z ramą, także 50 zł taniej, jedynie 199 zł. A dwukomorowa deska SUP aż 100 zł taniej za 1499 zł. Przeglądaj nasze gazetki również online.
Co zrobić, jeśli zapalisz w trakcie rzucania? Bardzo dobre pytanie. Potknięcia zdarzają się nawet najlepszym. Dlatego
And have access to Google could find a way to play it. I'll leave it there. And also thank you to everybody who is here in the Twitch live chat hanging out with me while we film this. They're putting up with a lot of really cringy pauses and re-deliveries of lines that I'm doing. Like, I know for you guys it's a very fluid experience. You just watch this video play out smoothly. These poor suckers are like sitting in chat watching me do like, and the reason I said that, and the reason I say that is because, so these guys are real champs. They're wonderful. If you ever want to hang out with us while we're filming videos like this, head over to the Twitch stream at Luke Stevens TV and hang out. We stream a lot, and I would love to have you over here. It's a good time, so hop on over. So when you boot up Unreal PT, this is what we are looking at. We have a basic brightness scale, which you would expect, horizontal and vertical camera inversion if you want to do that for some reason. And then you can turn on resolution scale and high quality screen space reflections. This is, of course, not something that was present in the original demo, but it is nice if you want to crank fidelity. Radius Cordello, that's the individual who created this recreation, I suppose. Watch out, the gap in the door, it's a separate reality. The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you? And I know what you're thinking. What does that mean? I have no idea. This is a Kojima game, so who has any idea? We go through the door, and voila. We are in PT. Rockin' and rollin'. I'm actually going to play this with a controller because the recreation has mouse acceleration built in. It drives me absolutely insane, so I'm going to play it with a controller, which I think works a lot more naturally, and it's how the game was intended to be played anyway, so why not? I know we already got one. Can we get another chair spin? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're welcome. That one's free. That one's free. I'll have to charge you for the next one. Okay, let's rock and roll. Things are gonna get spoopy. Here we go. Here we go. So, if you've never played PT before, the basic premise is that we are in this hallway. Things are scary and spoopy. It's marked at 11:59. A radio's playing, and we will continually work through this loop time and time again, going through the same hallway, and this is the entire game. So I guess you could call it a time loop game, but it's also like a lot more simple than that. It's very simple. And I think it's interesting because it does go to show you can make a compelling game without an over-reliance on huge levels or crazy set pieces. You can make a compelling horror experience without all of that, just relying on psychological twists and turns. But don't expect anything more than this, because this is pretty much it. Okay, some chocolate, cookies, a banana, some cigarettes, keys. I don't like whenever your chandelier, is that a lantern maybe, is rocking like that, you need to stop. Okay, down the stairs, and we go through the door. Now, I need you to put yourself in the mindset of somebody playing this back in 2014. You have no idea who made this. You don't know what it's about. You don't know how big it is. You don't know anything. Like, you are going into this completely blind. And especially for 2014, these graphics were basically photorealistic. And even now, the game looks tremendous. I mean, look at this. This is a recreation. The original game looked pretty much identical to this as well. So it was very, very sort of unnerving, because you just, like, this was not something that you would normally get for free out of nowhere from a random developer. This was something with a lot of effort and dev time put into it. And it just didn't make sense why it was here, you know? This time we round the corner, though, and the door's closed. Weird. Odd. The door doesn't want to open. Walk back. That's spoopy. That's spoopy. I don't know what to tell you, man. That's spoopy. And in case you are frustrated by my use of the term spoopy, I'm going to keep saying it because it's the only way I can sort of self-soothe and comfort myself. So I'm going to keep doing it. But this is where we'll start to pick up on one of the staples of PT, which is that there is no guidance. They don't tell you what to do or where to go. You just kind of wander around until something happens. And that's the game. Now, some people have wondered, is the lack of guidance a feature in and of itself? In other words, like, is the fact that you have to just wander around and maybe Google what you should do next, is that part of the experience? That sort of community assistance, is that actually a feature? And I don't really know what to make.
Nasze rezerwy wodne są na ukończeniu. Przed 2025 rokiem zabraknie wody, by wyprodukować wystarczającą ilość żywności dla wszystkich ludzi na świecie. Za 25 lat połowa mieszkańców Ziemi będzie mieszkać na obszarach dotkniętych niedoborem wody. Wielbłąd może przeżyć bez wody dłużej niż 3 tygodnie. Ty bez wody nie przetrwasz 3 dni. Nie jesteś wielbłądem. Używaj wody w sposób odpowiedzialny. Odwiedź waterofthefuture.org i sprawdź, co możesz zrobić.
I think to a certain extent, Kojima did expect and anticipate people to help each other work through the game. But when he put this out, there weren't guides online. There wasn't an infrastructure in place. There was just no guidance whatsoever. So most players, I remember sitting down at a friend's house and we were going through this on her base PS4. We had no idea what we were doing or where to go next. We were just wandering around, and it took us like 3 or 4 hours to get through the entire game because there were no guides out, and it was just random experimentation, and even then we didn't really know what we did that made us progress. So as for whether or not it's an actual feature or just sort of a bizarre game design choice, I'm not entirely sure. Oh, right there. Oh, okay, so right here. There's a picture frame on the floor. R3 to zoom in. My voice, can you hear it? This sign, can you read it? Only forever. Can you just come to me? Okay, now I think I can go through. Yeah, okay, now the door's open. So this is just, it's one thing. I can appreciate back in 2014 this being a total question mark in people's minds, meandering through this and figuring out little things here and there and discovering new items and things. Now, it just comes off as extremely tedious and kind of annoying. I gotta be honest, you're kind of bringing the energy down. Kind of being a bummer. You're sobbing in a bathroom. What is this, high school? Okay, let me go back through. Voila. Voila. And this is, I mean, pretty much the game. You're just gonna wander through the same area time and time again, trying to discover new things, stumble onto ways to bypass the loop that you're stuck in. It doesn't really have any rhyme or reason to it. It's just kind of, you're doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff. And personally, I prefer games that give a little more structure or have a little more justification to the activities they're tasking you with. I love a mystery as much as the next person, but I don't find like mindless, like, I don't even know what to call it. It's not even a task, it's not even a quest, because it's just doing random things to progress. In this case, like, we found that picture frame that has a bunch of the picture torn out from it. So to progress, what we actually have to do is go and find pieces of the picture that have been torn up and scattered around the level. You're not told any of that, and there's no real reason that finding those pieces would make you progress in a magical time loop sort of thing. It's just that that's what Kojima wanted you to do. You know? That's it. Get the Okay. Okay, I see what we're doing. Happy couple. Very happy couple. Love it. Love it. The one thing you gotta say is that they really nailed the ambiance, because I've done this before. I know what to expect. There's nothing like particularly scary about this to me. It's just a hallway. Somebody's crying in the bathroom. What's new? It's just like every college dorm ever. But even so, it's just unnerving and unsettling, and it makes you just want to not play it anymore. So here's the picture. You see it's coming back together. We found a couple pieces. I might need to go through the door again. Okay, it's a horror game. They open the door, I go to the door. Watch this, you guys ready? I remember this. You ready for this? Take a peeky peek. Scary! I think the way you gotta play these games is to just like run through like a child skipping through the woods. Is that what that was? You know, games are a lot less scary when you're prancing. That's all I'm gonna say. Murderers are a lot less scary when you prance. You gotta go through, like, just because there's death doesn't mean we can't have it. You know? I take back what I said. I'm sorry. Don't prance. I didn't mean what I said. Lisa, please don't. Okay. We're gonna prance. Prance, 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 I'm having such a good time. I'm not scared at all. Even though I've done this many times before, I don't know why I'm scared. Get out. Get out of here. It's okay. Prance, prance, prance. Prance, prance, prance. Having a good time, not scared at all. Having a good time, having a good time. Shooting sky flying across the sun like a sky. Suicide. Benison and the Senate. Just like Get Lady Godiva. I don't remember.
Ile składników mineralnych należy uzupełnić po jednym treningu? Oblicz w kalkulatorze minerałów Staropola.
204863. Don't look behind you. 204863. 204863. Oh. Okay, just so everybody knows and is on the same page. So with that, I come and I check the picture. The only thing you'll see is gouge it out with an X. So you're supposed to zoom in and then smack buttons, including A or X on the original PlayStation controller, and it'll gouge out her eye, which triggers the door to open. I would love, forgive me, Lisa, there's a monster inside. Charming. I would love to have been in the room when Kojima was like telling the team what they were gonna do. Like, just imagine it. Like, okay, guys, the next thing we're gonna do is a picture, and the picture will have been there the whole time, but we're gonna put an X on it. Okay, what else do we do, Mr. Hideo? What are we gonna do? Well, we have to make it so players have to zoom in on it. And then they've got to randomly know to press A, even though they haven't had to press that button the whole game. Okay. Why? Great. Stunning. Beautiful. You know, like, it just, I get it. It's obscure. It's weird. But I gotta think there are better ways to design a game, you know? If a game demands interaction, and the interaction is nothing short of button spamming on the controller until something happens, that just can't be, like, that can't be the best way to do it, you know? Maybe I'm not smoking enough of what he's smoking. Maybe I'm missing it. Because whatever he's on that makes him think of this stuff, it's got to be pretty powerful. Door's still locked. I gotta be honest, I just got goosebumps all down my arm. I knew that was coming and it still happened. Son of a mother bitches. Son of a mother bitches. What the hell are you doing? You breaking windows? Mad woman? Red light. Roxanne. Okay, how did you even get it up there? I'm gonna say it. It's not that easy to lift a fridge up. It's just not. I don't care how spooky, monstrous you are. That's just unrealistic. That's just unrealistic. I keep checking the ceiling because I know at some point something's gonna pop up there. I'll come back to help you. I swear I'll be right back. Give me a second. I can hear them calling from L. Luke? I hear them calling from Luke? From Love Island? From Lilypad Lilyhammer? Luke's really showing off his parenting skills by ignoring the crying. You'll learn to tune it out. I can't control my face right now. I know it looks like I'm sucking on a lemon. That's how I feel. Never-ending hallway. I don't actually know what we're supposed to do here. I think it's like you go forward 5 and then backwards 5 or something weird like that. This is one of those things, like, I get it. It's a time loop. Ooh, spooky. And so maybe we are supposed to feel just as hopelessly trapped in time as the character. And that's why it's actually not just repetitive bloat, but it's actually artistic. You know, maybe that's what it is. But I gotta be honest, all it makes me think is I hate this. You know? And horror games are weird because you can get away with a lot in video games because if it makes people like miserable, and if they don't like something, you can just say that's part of it. That's part of the gameplay design. We meant for that. In this case, I think this is really dumb. No guidance whatsoever. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know. Okay, well, let's think. What was the number that they said? It was like 2, 4, 0, 6, 8. So what if we go forward 2? Probably been forward 2 a couple times. Then what, backwards 6 times? I'm supposed to look in a peephole. Jump scare? That's the puzzle. Just to look for a peephole. Supposed to look at the hole and then zoom in. That's the
You got fired, so you drowned your sorrows in booze. She had to get a part-time job working a grocery store cash register. Only reason I age at all is the manager liked it.
Siema Biedra. 1, 2, 3, siema, siema, to jest...
Okay, Koji.
Jesteś jeszcze? Halo, halo?
Okay, back to normal.
Jakiego
Dear God,
kontrolado?
that one is probably the worst. Because you are running
Weź
through
tu
this time,
kontrolado.
so you think like, okay, they just listed off a bunch of numbers. So maybe I have to go through and like a specific number. I've got to pass this one door 2 times and then that thing 4 times. But no, you are supposed to notice a little dot on the wall. I don't know why I did it because it was meant. Somebody type that in chat. 204863.
Jesteś tam jeszcze? Biedra, halo, halo.
Knowing you, I was sure you'd notice this game and played. I will never forget that game 20 years ago. Oh, I didn't get to read the rest of it. And it's signed J. Watch out, Kevin. Yeah, so the same text reads before. So a lot of people thought, oh, the game just glitched. And I reset. It restarted me. Damn it. Then you realize that you didn't actually glitch out. It was intentional. Wow. It's almost like Kojima goes out of his way to make the most unfun games possible. I mean, I kind of get what you mean, though. Like, I'm conflicted about it. Cause let's be real. Let's take a breather. Okay, let's take a breather while we're here. I can appreciate artistic choices in games. I can appreciate trying to cross the artistic and the narrative side of the game's design with the gameplay and trying to tie them together. So, like, the dread of like, the real scary thing, I think I heard this in a Kojima interview where he said, the thing that scares players the most is actually not knowing what they're supposed to do. And that uncertainty can be used to your advantage. So if you want a really scary game, just remove that element. Remove the comfort of knowing what you're supposed to do. And I get that idea. But you're a game designer. And at like some point, as an art piece, I think PT is probably pretty compelling. As a game, I don't know how you can reasonably say that it is anything other than a self-indulgent acid trip that was on PlayStation. Like, there's no other way that I can look at the game other than that it's just sort of a bizarre acid trip that we get to share with Kojima. Oh. Nothing in the sink, nothing in the toilet. A turlet, nothing in the turlet. Not even a turlet 20. If you guys know that reference, let me know in the chat or in the comments, and we can be best friends. Oh, turlet 20. If you know that reference, I'll be very pleased. Think like a crazy person. Where would I hide a piece of a picture? If I start? No, that would make too much sense. Think like a crazy Kojima. Oh.
Tymbark po prostu woda i sok. Woda i owoce. Bez dodatku cukru. Po prostu naturalne składniki.
Is that one? Hey! Okay, now we casually run through the door. Green! For cash money. That means if you beat the game on this loop, you get $500,000 cash. I mean, again, just imagine sitting in the design meeting. And everyone's like, so what's the next thing gonna be? Well, we're gonna make a playable teaser for our next game. Silent Hills. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. What are we going to do for the teaser? Give them like a level or two to explore? No. No. We're not doing that. Okay, well then what are we gonna do? We're gonna give them, and then we're gonna have them walk over and over. I'm not gonna move. I remember this happening. I don't know what I'm supposed to do though. Like, am I supposed to not move? Or is that the opposite of what I'm supposed to do? Lisa, honey. You doing okay, honey? Do you need dessert? You're not you and you're hungry. I think that was progress. One of the theories in the original PT was that you needed to call to Lisa in the PlayStation microphone, and doing so would summon her and trigger this, which is cool. You got, like, if you say, "Come here, Lisa," Lisa, come here, things like that. Then the PlayStation mic would pick that up, read the voice, and then she would trigger. Other people found that it showed up randomly between like 30 seconds and 90 seconds. So it probably wasn't triggered by the voice, it was just random and people were talking into their mics and convinced themselves that it was triggered by that. Or it's a combination of the two. Who knows? But it just, like, when players can't tell if something is random or if something is designed, I don't actually know if that's a good thing or not. Like, props that it's not, like, so lame that nobody cares. But still, like, it doesn't seem very good. Miss Nikki's calling. She's called twice. So I'll take this real quick. We'll be right back and then we'll finish it. Okay. I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back. Promise. Okay. This last little bit's going to be interesting. Sorry. Because I am a baby. Well, hello everybody. Hello fans. Careful. Hello everybody. Hello all my adoring fans. Good to see you. Good to see you. Here, do you want to play with your controller? I have an old PS4 controller I let him play with.
You've been chosen.
Right as we finish.
Dad was such a drag. Every day he'd eat the same kind of food, dress the same, sit in front of the same kind of games. Yeah, he was just that kind of guy. But then one day he goes and kills us all.
And then in the original, the little trailer thing would play, and it was like, ooh, it's PT. Oh, it was for Silent Hills. I get it now. But that's it. Okay, let's debrief. Let's get around. Okay, closing thoughts on all of that. So while I can understand and appreciate many of the things that make PT unique, such as the fact that it came out last year, nobody had any idea that this thing was going to come out when it did, or run like it did, or look like it did. Like, so much of it was just unexpected and exciting. I know you want to talk about it. I can appreciate all of that, but it doesn't change the fact that so much of it is just kind of nonsense. I don't find the puzzles to be real puzzles because nobody even knows what they're supposed to do. Like, you know you're supposed to progress and get through it further, but there's no way to do it reasonably without just mindlessly exploring or Googling how to get through it. I can only imagine how tough it must have been for those first players to get through this with no guidance, no idea of what they should do at all. I mean, at least I kind of had like memories of the solutions, so it was easier for me to do it than those initial players, but still, there's so much here that I just don't think it's aged particularly well. And perhaps it's a mixture of, like, I've played it before, so it's not as many.
Twoja broda rośnie codziennie, dlatego codziennie się golisz. Big Hybrid Flex posiada wymienne wkłady z tytanowymi ostrzami do ultra gładkiego golenia. To doskonałe golenie. I tak teraz ma wymienne wkłady.
Ten pierścionek nie był zaręczynowy. Uwiecznił niezwykłą rocznicę moich dziadków. Dając mi go powiedziała, abym wręczył go tej jedynej, z którą zbudował.
Magical as it once was. Maybe that's it. Or maybe it's something else altogether. What I do know is that PT, whether it's a good game or not, has certainly stuck with the public consciousness. And to a certain extent, perception is more important than reality. If people's perception is that PT is one of the greatest horror games of all time, that kind of makes sense. So, either way, the game is a phenomenal success despite being nothing more than a teaser for a game that never ended up being made. It's sad, but I think it's also probably good because I think PT in many ways is better than whatever they could have delivered in Silent Hill. Because the mystery and the obscurity actually helped it a lot. Whereas, you know, knowing that there's a Kojima horror game coming in the future, that sets expectations at a certain level. I think it just would be a different experience altogether. Going into this game completely blind without players to have an experience is really unique and special. And that you just don't see nowadays. Because who else? Like, what other big name developer would put something out without their name on it, without any marketing or anything? I know, there's no one. No one else would do it. You see the light? Yeah. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you for hanging out. I'm going to go play with the little Mr. Man. He wants to play some games of his own. Yeah, exactly. He's like, enough filming, Dad. It's time to play. We're going to go hang out. Thanks for watching. I love you all. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. You did so good. You did so good. Say bye, everybody. Bye. Bye. Yeah. I played the original Dying Light way back in the day, and I had a lot of fun with it. It was mostly the co-op offering most of the fun for me. Some really enjoyed the story, I'm sure, but for me and my friends, that camaraderie is where the game really shined. Likely, this was because we were playing the game years after launch, when DLC abounded and the complete edition of the game was very, very cheap. I'm not sure, but regardless of the mitigating circumstances, I am sure that I enjoyed my time with the game back then. So when I found out there was going to be a sequel, I was excited. More free-running parkour through a post-apocalyptic, abandoned, dilapidated city? Who wouldn't want that? And after multiple delays, eventually the game did launch in early 2022, and it received mixed reactions when it launched. Just to run through them quickly, the game did have a ton of bugs when it launched, and many reviews mentioned these technical difficulties, whether they were outright bugs, checkpoints not triggering, or performance issues on computers that really should not have been having issues to begin with. But at the outset, let me say that I actually did not suffer from any of these technical shortcomings. I actually had a pretty good time with the game, and I didn't run into many bugs at all. A friend of mine had his game hard lock him out, requiring him to manually delete his save files to restart the game completely. I've also seen countless other people report bugs and crashes, but thankfully, I didn't have any of these issues, and many seem to have been patched out in the weeks and months since the game's launch, so I won't dwell on them too much here. You guys know I heavily penalize games when they have technical issues at launch. I think you must, otherwise you're incentivizing studios putting out rushed pieces of garbage, which is why I gave Horizon Forbidden West a really hard time. It's why I gave Elden Ring a hard time. You have to be consistent with these things, otherwise you're just a fanboy making excuses for companies you like. The problem is I don't actually have that footage for this video, so I don't have anything to talk about. So I figured I would mention it. Some people had major issues at launch. I was not one of those people. The extent of bugs that I encountered on a first-hand basis were actually just second-hand, because we were playing co-op. A friend of mine was helping me capture some footage of the co-op gameplay while I was experimenting with it and trying it out. And he actually had so many issues with his game's performance that the only potential fix was actually to completely delete and reinstall the game after a hard reboot and driver reinstall. I don't think it's that scandalous to say that no AAA game should ever release with that burden placed on the player just to get it functioning at a basic level. And the really unfortunate side effect of these technical issues at launch was that many people who would have enjoyed the game's co-op decided to wait on the game because they just didn't want to risk spending $60, $70 on a title that would just end up having a bunch of technical issues that they couldn't enjoy. So a lot of people just passed on it and effectively waited for a sale that probably won't come soon enough because most players have just moved on. And I ran into this too. I had friends that I wanted to play co-op in this game with, and these same friends had played the original game with me and had a great time in that co-op system. But here, they just didn't want to risk it. But regardless, I decided to give it a try. So I booted up the game and was greeted with a familiar title screen. And it's here that we get into the nitty-gritty of Dying Light 2. Let's get into it. So, when we boot up the game, we are prompted with an interesting statement. The text reads, "Every choice will shape the future." And this immediately sets the expectation with players that their choices in the main story will have long-lasting, significant consequences. This made me really excited. I was pumped. I was like, okay, yeah, a Dying Light with a branching story, RPG, decision, like, let's do this. I'm down. It ends up not really being true, but, you know, at the start I was excited. We then get to select our desired difficulty, and we have choices between easy, normal, or hard. With the easy option, you'll receive less damage and receive more items. Normal is the balanced mode between challenging and easy engagement. Items are well hidden and require effort to find. But hard makes rare items way harder to find. Resource management is key, and damage is greatly increased on the receiving end, though not on the giving end. What this basically means is that if you're playing on hard, you're going to be doing a lot of busy work, because a lot of these systems rely on the player going, collecting certain items, crafting healing items, or different things they need to complete missions, and then repeating the process after they've run through that mission or retrieved the item they were seeking. On easy and normal, you're given enough of those crafting items that you don't actually need to do this, but on the harder difficulty, you will spend a lot of time running around looking for these small little special items that spawn far less frequently. And it's kind of a bummer if I'm being completely honest. Difficulty in games is great, but I usually look for difficulty not in busy work and how well a player can juggle the minutia of very, very small and complicated systems, but rather in the actual quality of the engagement. If you're fighting an enemy, they're hard because their movesets are varied and vast, and it's hard to keep track of what's going on, but skill can overcome that. Skill being the operative word there. With this difficulty setting, it often just feels like they're giving unfair boosts to enemies' damage, and then they are nerfing your ability to discover items that you need in order to actually engage with the game. Kind of sucks if I'm being real. But regardless, we select our difficulty option and begin the story. We open in 2036, 15 years after the fall of humanity. We are playing as a character named Aiden, a pilgrim who carries messages between large settlements of survivors of the virus that's caused the global destruction in which we'll be playing. And it's a good starting point for the character because it explains why they're able to do what they do. In order to be a pilgrim, you would have to be agile, capable in combat, frugal, and resourceful. This is so much better than when a game gives a nonsensical backstory to the main character like in Fallout 4 if you choose the female character who was simply a lawyer before the bombs fell. There's no reason for her to be able to use a gun or survive in the wastes, whereas the male lead character in Fallout 4 was a soldier and has a built-in justification for his capabilities and his shortcomings. It's a small detail, but shows that the writers wanted to justify the character's existence and powers, something that really helps with immersion for cynical pricks like me. During the opening sequence, we will free run through a tunnel as a bunch of zombies chase us, narrowly escaping as a man named Spike yells at you from a cliff nearby. He asks you to join him, and then you are put through the introductory sequence that serves as the tutorial section for the free running in basic melee combat. It's pretty simple, nothing too complicated, especially if you played the first game, but I will still insist that the button layout for controller by default is just odd. The right bumper for jump, it still sits in my head weird. Every time I pick up the controller to play the game, I have to like force myself to realize down. I know it's stupid, maybe I just struggle with this type of thing, but it still bugs me. Once you meet up with Spike, he will guide you through a basic crafting tutorial as well, asking you to collect honey and chamomile. And it's here that you'll notice that the collecting animation is super generic and in no way reflects what you're actually collecting from wherever you're reaching to. I get it, not every game can be Red Dead Redemption 2 and have careful animations for skinning animals and reaching into different objects and placing them in a satchel with realistic leather physics. I get it. It still just looks super stupid to me. I will also point out that in this introductory section, I did come across some really bizarre running animations that seemed kind of screwed up, which most likely was just a technical issue considering I was playing this section really close to launch. It's not a great first impression if I'm being honest, but I have trouble calling this a bug or a major glitch. It's just kind of weird. Regardless, I think we could all agree this isn't functioning in the way that it's supposed to. Soon after you learn how to craft, you'll come up on a house that you start searching for supplies. A bunch of people threw a party here back in 2023 as everything was collapsing. Perhaps it's unreasonable of me, or maybe I'm just mistaken, but this building really doesn't look like it's been abandoned for over a decade. The condition is way too good. Food is still out on plates with flies actively hovering over top, the water damage is minimal, and the furniture all looks to be in pretty good shape. Until I recently went full-time on YouTube and Twitch, I was actually working professionally as a commercial real estate broker, and I sold apartment buildings in all different conditions, some really good, some downright terrible, some that had been abandoned for extended period of times with squatters staying in them, you name it, I probably saw it. One time I even sold a 6-unit apartment building that had been abandoned for some length of time between 18 months and 3 years. The owner didn't know. Sidebar, can you imagine owning like a $600,000-$700,000 building and just being like, oh, I don't know if people have been renting or staying there for a few years. I have no idea. I have no clue. Like, you gotta be pretty loaded to be that careless. But that apartment building look to be in about the same condition as this house is. Though all of the food, all of the crap that was lying around that flies could have infested was long gone. Obviously, we could point to this being a mansion that likely was built better than your average apartment building. Perhaps there are environmental differences in the weather, but my point is that my anecdotal experience would suggest that this house is in too good of shape. Now, maybe people were living in this house until much more recently, and all of these remnants are from later survivors, but if that's the case, I never heard any dialogue communicating this. And if that were the case, why would all of the decorations from the party still be up? Surely later survivors would have at least done a little to fortify this place and removed some of the party decorations, but it just doesn't make sense. Furthermore, in the next room over and out on the patio, you can find the decomposing bodies of all of the party goers. They're all sitting or laying exactly where they died. The only reasonable inference is that these people threw a party to celebrate the end of the world. But not in a campy way, but rather in a literal way. You see, they all came together in this beautiful house celebrating life, or at least what was left of it. And then they all went out on their own terms, in a Jonestown-esque send-off. The pill bottles laying around basically prove this point. All of a sudden, everything you see around the house makes perfect sense. The decorations are still up because nobody was left to clean them up. The signage out on the patio reads "End of the World Party" and "Welcome to the last party." It really was their last party. And judging from how hopeless their situation must have seemed, you can't really pass moral judgment on these people. They went out on their terms in the face of total calamity instead of slowly being picked off one by one, starving, or being infected themselves. It's a somber moment, and it really does a good job of setting the tone for the game. I really liked this part. This is also the first time you'll really notice the music and the sound design. The gentle silence clearly communicates the emotion and tone of the scene. As the wind gently blows through the trees and you make your way through the 24 or so bodies lying next to the pill bottles which provided their relief, you can't help but feel as though you should be quiet and respectful in this, their final resting place. Again, it's a great introduction to the rest of the game. Unfortunately, this won't last for long, and this is really the only time the game nails this. But going back to the setting and the condition of the house, because that's what I was bitching about before, I just wanted to say that this is something that a lot of games in the post-apocalyptic genre do. It's not just Dying Light 2. Once again, Fallout 4 is probably the worst offender of this, and it's mostly just because 200 years are supposed to have passed between when the bombs first fell and civilization practically ended, and the current time at which the player is going through and exploring the world. And you still find perfectly edible food lying around. You find whole houses still standing, which were made of nothing but wood and haven't collapsed due to rot or